So coming up next, we're going to move right to our next session, which is a panel, a superstar panel, called Beyond the Code Live, Is Technology Really Making Life Easier for Game Devs? And I'd like to call up to the stage our panelists, Oz Zayed, Keith Adair, Conrad Dispute, and Phil Williams.
Hello. Welcome everyone to today's panel. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Oz from Sauce Labs, and I'm a game dev evangelist at Backtrace Sauce Labs, and I'll be the moderator for today's panel. Our topic for discussion today is technology really making life of a game dev easier? So we have a wonderful panel here today. We have Phil Williams from King, Keith from Unity, and Conrad from Sauce Labs. So I'll now allow each one of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves to you, and over to Keith from Unity.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Keith Adair, Senior Client Partner for Unity Gaming Services. Been around the industry for, I guess, too many years to mention, right back to the early days of Java Brew development in the mobile days. More recently, spending a lot of time around data and analytics. I was part of a company called Delta DNA, who are or were a data and player management platform for the games industry. We were acquired by Unity back in September 2019, so since then been on the gaming services team here at Unity. And Unity Gaming Services, for those who don't know, is a modular platform that provides all the tools that you need to run a live game out in the marketplace. So whether that's multiplayer tools, game backend, through to analytics, A/B testing, content delivery tools, etc. And we actually have a new cloud diagnostic advanced service which is powered by Backtrace as well. So yeah, that's my background. Very pleased to be here, pleased to be on the panel, and yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, thank you so much, Keith. And now Conrad from Sauce Labs.
Hey, my name is Konrad, or maybe I will try without microphone. Can you hear me?
Are you still on?
Oh. Okay, so let me try once again, but this time with microphone. So once again, hi, my name is Konrad, and I have been working for Backtrace / Souls 5 years, and I'm mostly responsible for client-side integrations or service layer integrations. What does it mean? Konrad, you are really technical. What does it mean? Okay, so long story short, if you want to use Backtrace and you integrate Backtrace with any kind of technology, you probably need some kind of SDK to integrate with us. So I'm the one who was responsible for designing a lot of them that our customers keep using, and I'm also responsible for some kind of integration with them. So for example, if you use Backtrace UI and you hit some kind of button and the button doesn't work or Jira ticket is not being created, it means that this guy is being responsible for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Conrad. And now we have Phil from King.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Williams. I'm art director at King. I work on a game called Farm Hero Saga, and I've been at King for about 2.5 years. I'm relatively new to the games industry, so I actually came from an old school background of magazine, comic, print production. So I'm hoping that in this conversation today I'm going to bring a couple of other perspectives from somebody who actually comes from quite a non-tech background and working in tech and entertainment industry. I'm delighted to be part of the panel today, so hope you enjoy it.
All right, thanks, Phil. So the first question I have for the panel today is about technology and how it helps developers in making their lives easier. So I'd like to ask this question to you, Keith. What are the key factors to consider when adopting a new technology in a mobile game project?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key things here. I think the first one I would say is it going to make your life easier as a developer, as per the title of the panel? But also, is it going to improve the player experience? I think that's the most important thing. And again, with my background in analytics, I think analytics is an interesting example. So, back in the early days of Delta DNA, we were one of the companies that were out there, along with others, trying to educate the market to the value of data, the importance of data, not just in terms of using data to drive game design optimizations, but how you can use data to start to manage live ops experience and manage the player experience as players are playing. And there were a lot of early adopters that saw some really strong results from that, but it wasn't really common practice in the market. And I think that's a really good example of how technology has helped people or make the life easier for developers, but at the same time improving the player experience. And if you fast forward to kind of modern day, you won't see or you won't find a developer out there, certainly a free-to-play developer, that isn't thinking about analytics and data right from the early stage of development. And again, not just in terms of game design and how you can use that data to optimize the game design, but how you can use data to drive live ops strategies and drive customization strategies and the positive impact that can have on your KPIs. And I think there's some really other interesting technology that is coming to market over recent times. And I think, cloud content delivery tools, for example, we have a cloud content delivery solution at Unity. And again, we're seeing some early adopters that are using tools like that to really improve the player experience by refreshing content on a regular basis, whether that be assets, characters, and seeing the impact that that's having on player engagement. But again, I wouldn't say it's common practice right now. And we're seeing some great results, but it's not commonplace yet. But I see a world kind of, whether that's 12 months, 2 years, 3 years down the line, where that does become common practice. And we look back on that and we think, okay, that's another great use of technology in terms of making the life of a developer easier to improve the player experience. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
All right, thanks, Keith. So I'd like to ask the same question to you, Phil. The key factors to consider when adopting a new technology.
Well, from my perspective, working with my art team, the question I'll always ask is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? So if I think of it from, for example, digital asset management tools, we work across assets that we're sharing across multiple users, and we've got various ways of doing this, but what we need to make sure that we're doing is not complicating the life of the dev, or in my case, my team, the artist. So I'm just trying to find what's the most simple solution to a problem. The answer is not always clear, and we're trying a few things out at the moment because we've got different stakeholders who need to access things in different ways. So from an art perspective, we're looking at a Photoshop file, and we know we're going to share that file with somebody who doesn't have Photoshop, for example. How are we going to make that very straightforward for them to be able to access, see it, and whether we're using something like Perforce for storing files, or we're using Trello boards for making sure we can do art approval processes, or whether we're looking into a digital asset management tool where we can maybe automate some of those processes. It's always just what's the question, what's the key thing that we're trying to solve. So simplicity at the heart of things and not making things overcomplicated. And also then just kind of revisiting, continually looking at processes, trying things out, seeing whether something is actually doing what we hoped it would do. So it's really, from my perspective, it's how can I make things as painless for teams so that they can actually do what they need to do.
All right, thanks, Phil. So the same question over to you, Conrad.
From the engineering perspective, I feel like we need to make a decision based on multiple factors. If this technology is needed by the project, is this technology needed by the team? Because every day we hear about new JavaScript framework that comes to the market, and we shouldn't be obligated to update our dependencies or update our tech stack just because there is a new cool JavaScript framework. We need to understand the consequences of the technology, and we need to be prepared for a new technology. We need to answer questions like, will the team learn the technology? Will this technology solve a problem in the project, or will this technology be better than the existing technology that we have in our tech stack? Because we need to also understand consequences like later if we deploy the technology to our customers, if this will break something, or if it will break, what it will break, and how we can handle specific situation. So we need to be careful, but at the same time we know about multiple applications and multiple examples of the applications that doesn't exist anymore because of the lack of the new technology, lack of the new patterns, lack of the fresh new view in the application. So we need to stay in touch. We still need to think about new technologies and new opportunities, but we need to think more than twice before we adopt the technology. Are we ready?
All right, thanks, Conrad. So now the next question. This basically you see there's a lot of pressure often from stakeholders to release a game on time, to stick to a deadline. But from a game developer's perspective, there's always some resistance or pushback when they see critical bugs or issues affecting the game, right? So, and the game developers may be right because nobody wants to associate their name with a buggy or like a really badly made game. So, but at the same time, it's also critical to ship games on time. So, from Unity's perspective, how does Unity Gaming Services help game developers in making sure they ship quality games on time? Keith?
Yeah, I think first and foremost by, I guess, providing you with robust and scalable technology, which helps you to manage a live game when it's out in the marketplace. And by that, what I mean is kind of doing the heavy lifting for you from a tech perspective. So, giving you guys time to really focus on what you're great at, which is delivering, fantastic player experiences. And we know, for example, when we're out there speaking with different studios from a gaming service perspective, that there's a few examples that we come across. And one might be you're using vendor A for analytics, you're using vendor B for game back end, and then you've created some live ops tools yourselves internally. And you're spending a lot of time trying to map and stitch those tools together, not just to get them into a functional manner for your teams to be able to use those to manage the player experience, but also to get some level of data consistency across those different toolkits, so you can really start to understand the impact that certain changes you're having are having on the player experience and also on your KPIs. So I think what we do at Unity Gaming Services, as I said earlier, is bring all those different features and functionality together under one modular platform that allows you to select those different tools that you need on a case-by-case basis, depending on the type of experience that you're trying to deliver through to the end user. And one of the key benefits of that is, aside from taking that kind of pain away from you guys, is giving you the ability to very efficiently test and iterate. So you can, right from the early stages of development through the soft launch, before you get to global release, you can test various different things, whether that's difficulty balancing, whether it's economy structures, giving you the tools where you can really optimize the game through those early phases, really make sure that you're delivering the best player experience and really make sure that that's impacting positively on your KPIs before you take that game to market. And then from a kind of, I guess just to round off specifically from a bugs and error reporting element, as I mentioned earlier, having tools like cloud diagnostic services built into the platform that gives you all the benefits of things like Backtrace, but also adds to that kind of ease of use in terms of ease of accessibility because it's all available through the Unity dashboard.
All right, thanks, Keith. So the similar question to you at King. So how do teams at King ensure you release content on time?
I'm just checking to see if there's any King producers out there and see if it doesn't look like it. Okay, we're in a safe space. So it's a kind of definition of what is on time. And this is where we're very team-led. So we can't be 100% a roadmap built by teams because we have to have goals and we have to have product goals and targets to hit. But when we're talking about those product goals and those decisions we make about what we want to release and when we want to update features, we try to be very team-led and we get those estimates from our teams and we build that into our roadmap. So that will be from the art perspective, it will be how long does it actually take to create an art asset. But also from our developers, we need to know how long is it going to be to build this, go through the QA process. And then what we're really trying to think about and drive it into those estimates is less of a focus of we need to get this out within a time frame, and that's the decision that's driving it. It's about how robust and how confident are we that we've gone through those QA tests and that when something goes to live, we're confident we're not going to cause a problem. So kind of rethinking of what does on time mean. I would, and again, checking there's no producers around, I would much prefer that thought process to be driven by how confident am I with this release. And if that means we, again, thinking about the context of terminology, if we delay something, is that going to be the best thing for making sure we have a successful release? It's about a definition of quality. So quality can be about robustness of releases. And I think that's how that drives those decisions.
All right, thanks, Phil. So, similar question, Conrad. So, how does Backtrace help mobile game developers in shipping quality games faster?
Okay, so I think to address this question, I think it's worth to say that if we have some kind of development plan, if we want to release some kind of change, there is a contract between stakeholders in business and between stakeholders in on the engineering team. And based on multiple factors, we know that, for example, we won't be on time. I think it's fair to say it's better to release less and then surprise our users with additional update than release a new library, new software that won't work. Especially when we in Backtrace, we are preparing libraries for other developers, which means that you in your games or you in your applications will use our software. If we fail with capturing some kind of crash, or if we fail because of our internal problem, you are losing your data. So in this kind of situation, it's just better for us to be really confident and be really sure that we are releasing a well-prepared release. And we can achieve that by using multiple patterns. Like, for example, I think it's obvious, but we as Backtrace are creating error reporting solution. So if we want to create and use our product, it means that our product works if we still use it. And other companies also want to use our product. So if we are successful with our product and we provide data that is useful for us, the same kind of data will be also useful for other products that use our software. So by providing this data, we want to make sure that you are confident with your release and you are confident with everything that you are shipping to your customers.
All right, thanks, Conrad. So, this next question is interesting. So, first, I would like to ask here, like, how many game developers in the room today? All right. And how many new game developers, like maybe just started out recently? All right. So this question is more towards, because a day in any game developer's life can really be stressful, right? So this not only impacts their work performance, but it can also take a toll on their mental and physical well-being. So what are your suggestions as to a new game developer, or to any game developer, on balancing workload to take care of their mental and physical well-being? So first, over to you, Keith.
I agree. I think it's an interesting question, but I don't think it's unique to games, and I don't think it's unique to games development. Right? Certainly since COVID and lockdown and people working from home on a regular basis, perhaps starting to feel a little bit isolated, etc. I think this is common across all industries and all professions. I've got some personal experience in terms of working from home on a regular basis pre-COVID and pre-lockdown. So at Delta DNA, for example, I spent many years working remotely down in the southeast while our head office was up in Edinburgh. And I'll always remember people used to say to me, Keith, how do you stay focused? How do you stay motivated? How do you keep your mind on the task in hand working from home? And I always used to respond, and it's very true, it's actually the opposite. Okay, you need to be very disciplined about taking time away from your desk, away from your PC, because you can very easily wake up in the morning, make yourself a coffee, sit at your desk at 7 a.m, and before you know it, it's 7 p.m. in the evening. You've been there for 12 hours. You might have popped down to make yourself another coffee or a quick sandwich at lunchtime, but that's effectively been the day. So what I always say is you have to actually be very disciplined about taking time out away from your desk, whether that's socialising with people away from your PC, whether that's doing a workout during the day, whether that's going for a walk, getting some fresh air, whatever it is that gives you that distraction, just to make sure, certainly if you're doing it on a regular basis, week in, week out, that you maintain a sensible work-life balance. I think that's critical for everybody nowadays.
All right. Thanks, Keith. So same question to you, Phil.
I was really hoping, Keith, actually, you were going to say, when you get asked that question, how do you maintain your focus? It took you a couple of hours to reply because you were down having a coffee at the nearest coffee bar. But I agree. I completely agree. Keith and I were talking about this just before we came up onto the panel. there's a few things. COVID's given us the opportunity to completely disprove the myth that working from home is in some way slacking. And similarly to Keith, I was working in a kind of hybrid setup before COVID at my old company. And that was back in 2010 when I first started doing that. And I found the challenge for me to begin with was switching off, was exactly what you're talking about, Keith, was the idea of presenteeism, of making sure that I needed to prove to everybody that I was at work. So starting and then finding it hard to know when to stop because I wasn't getting on a train to go home anymore. Now, we've all been through this experience over the past 2 years, so a lot of us have learned that and begin to realise that actually that isn't what happens when you work from home. But what I think when we think about technology is we've got incredible tools that allow us to do this, and almost all of us use Zoom. But to be mindful of the impact of looking at a screen and conversing with people, you're working harder doing this, and there's micro expressions and there's little human interactions that you miss when you're not face to face with somebody. So you're maybe thinking and working slightly harder when you're in those Zoom meetings, and you're probably, similarly to most of us, you can stack those Zoom meetings up and jump from one to the other. You no longer have that 5-minute break as you walk from one meeting room to another. So again, it's being gentle with yourself. It's being aware that this has given us a real gift in a way, hybrid working, and an opportunity, but we need to make sure that we retain that balance and look after ourselves. And when we're asked, how do you focus? Not reply straight away, because you're not there, you're doing something else.
All right, thanks, Phil. So same question to you, Conrad.
So I think we already covered everything from the work from home perspective. I would like to add something more from development perspective, because I think based on some kind of trends that I see, for example, in game industry or overall in the IT industry, we are in a rush. We are in a rush because we want to be the first possible market solution that does X. At the same time, we are in the situation when, for example, we are creating a solution that doesn't work or just create some kind of pain. So it means that some kind of frustrations are on developers. Like, we keep asking ourselves questions. Are we doing a good software? What can we change? Or how we are preparing a solution and how it doesn't work. I already tested it on multiple devices. I already tested it with multiple test cases. I already did everything to make sure it works. However, we have what we have, and sometimes based on some kind of decisions, we need to release something, we need to ship something, and we need to be prepared for what's next. So in this kind of situation, from the engineering perspective, to just be sure that we are prepared for this situation and we don't put stress on developers. Before we release, before we make any change, I like to ask a question, how we can confirm that something that we are doing, something that we are shipping, is being used by users, and how we can confirm it actually works. So by asking those two questions to developers, to
You're ready for spy work,
teams,
man. This is great.
usually we think about solutions before some kind of situation happen. And it allows us to have less stressful Sunday nights just after the release. And by doing that, we also know that, hey, maybe it's better to roll back the application or roll back some kind of migration, just to be prepared better, just to keep another release. And I think it's fair to say it's okay to fail, but it's not okay if you don't know that you are failing. So I think with those kind of advices, you need to always be prepared for answering those two questions.
All right, thanks, Conrad. So the next question, actually, I have is what are the best practices and learnings around making sure you release a quality game faster from Unity perspective, Keith?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I think there's a few points here. I think the first one would be going back to the use of technology nowadays. When you're starting to develop a game and create a game, think about the elements of that you may want to be able to personalise or customise further down the line, because if you use that in conjunction with technology, there's some great things you can do to optimise the game in real time as players are playing. So think about that through the development phase. You know, if you could change certain things, even on a kind of per player or per player segment basis, so that you can make that player experience better for certain types of players, build that into your game design strategy, so that when you're starting to think about tools and technology that you can use to actually deliver that, the game is designed in such a way that it reacts very well with the technology, and you can make those type of real-time changes that you want to. Because we know from experience that can have a really positive impact on KPIs and the performance of a game. I think secondly, related to that is, and you know, we say this all the time, test and iterate, test and iterate, test and iterate, right? So make use of that technology again through the early phases. So as you're going through soft launch or you're just testing through the early phases, again, make those adjustments, make those subtle changes, use the data, look at the data, what impact is that having on your KPIs? You know, again, do that per segment, A/B test as much as you can to make sure that you're getting that game into the very best state that you can before you get to that global release phase. And then one final point on that, I think is an important one, is don't be too proud to ask for help. You know, again, just speaking from a Unity perspective, we have teams of people at Unity, specifically at Unity Gaming Services, that are very experienced in game development, but obviously very experienced in the tools and services that we provide and we offer. And we want to make sure that developers get the very best from our Unity Gaming Services technology. So don't be too proud to put your hand up, reach out to us. You know, we are always looking to work with our partners through best practices, share best practices. We work across all types of game genres, all platforms, all type of player experiences, and we love to get involved and support to make sure that you are aware of things that are working or not working for your particular type of game that's out in the market.
All right, thanks, Keith. So a similar question from art direction perspective. So Phil, best practices?
Oh, I wish I knew the answer to this one. Again, it kind of comes back to remembering that we're using tools and we are creatives, and whatever craft that means you work in. I've heard the term a few times over the past few days in a conversation I was having last week about us working in a tech industry or working in an entertainment industry. And that's where that crossover between my previous life when I was working in magazines and comics, it's very similar in so many ways to what I do now with my art team and what we do when we're building things for games and in a different media. We're still entertaining people. So in order to make sure that we are releasing content in a timely manner that allows us to build what we want to build and make sure that our players and our audience are getting what they expect or being surprised and being entertained regularly, I think it's down to those processes. What we do within art, and it goes back to, I worked on Disney products for many years, and it goes right back to those old methods that were developed in the early days of Disney, the art production methods, and it was about creating a system. And then once you have that system in place, you get wonderful new tools, and we can use all the technologies available to us to make sure that we make our lives easier as creatives and that we have fewer barriers to what we want to do. But it's keeping a mind on those original systems and those processes that allow us to unlock creativity. And whether that is from a dev perspective, whether it's creating code, whether it's from coming up with an art concept and taking that all the way through to final animation, whether it's from a production viewpoint and working out how your team are going to work together, it's still those same concepts of using the tools that are available to you to work as smart as possible to unlock that creativity.
All right, thank you, Phil. So a similar question from the perspective of automated error and crash rebuilding.
I would like to follow up answers from my colleagues because you said that we need to keep testing. And I really agree with that because, as I said earlier, we want to be confident that everything works. But now, let's ask ourselves a question. Are we testing enough? Or are we testing in the right devices? Because let's pretend that we are making a mobile game. Or are we sure that no exceptions will occur during the game stage on runtime or while someone is playing the game? So here, if we want to answer those kind of questions, we want to maybe try to explore possible technology in the market, because I'm not sure if we can build in-house solution that allows you to understand what is happening on the runtime in every technology, with every aspect of the technology. Because, for example, I, as a developer, spend a lot of time on preparing just error reporting solution. So if we want to answer those questions, or if we want to adapt something that my friends propose, test, the question is how we can test it to make sure that if we release something, it will work and it will match our expectations, because there will always be device, there will always be some kind of configuration that might break something. So in this kind of situation, we are a good example of organization or product that allows you to capture those kind of problems or those kind of exceptions before your customers capture them and start reporting it to you, because this is the worst moment possible for you when your user starts reporting those issues. Instead of trusting customer that everything works and counting on him, it would be better for a developer if we will be notified by some kind of user action that shows some kind of problem. And to also address some kind of the context question, I think I would repeat myself. It's good to fail, it's okay to fail, unless you don't know you are failing. So you need to understand also some kind of your data. So if your application, for example, showing an exception, it might be okay, it might cause some kind of performance issues, it might cause your application some kind of problems. But it might be a silly mistake that doesn't need to be fixed right now if the solution will take a lot of time. Instead, you can focus on some kind of problems that might impact seriously your customers. Like, for example, let's pretend we are creating a casino game. In this kind of situation, when the game doesn't work in some kind of stage, the customer, the user, can lose their money. So this is the situation that we need to address as soon as possible. Let's pretend that we are creating a game. It's okay for a game to show an exception in background if the user still can play the game. But it's not okay if the game keeps constantly crashing. And it's also really cool to understand some kind of trends. Like, for example, we have some situations that developers try to capture. Like, for example, application not responding problems. When we release a game, we want to be sure that we understand the trend that is happening with application not responding. If, for example, a new release causing more problems or less issues. The same situation might happen, for example, with out-of-memory exception. With out-of-memory exceptions, after some kind of time, the application will crash, and we don't know what is the problem, what is the glucose of the problem, because this is something allocated in our memory. So based on this trend, we can make a decision. Should we move forward and create a feature, or should we try to, for example, adjust our technology and fix some problems?
All right, thank you, Conrad. So I think those were the questions that I have for the panel today, and it's been really wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And I just have a couple of minutes. So we actually have a booth across this room right there, G08. We're also giving away PS5. Please feel free to stop there, check out, and maybe you might win a PS5. Thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.